What's going on, everybody? Top 10 Pokemon back, and welcome to the Pokemon Card Auctions of the Week recap, where we take a look at some of the most interesting Pokemon card auctions that occurred this past week on multiple platforms, covering both vintage and modern cards. In today's video, we'll be touching on the newly graded cards from Prismatic Evolutions. We got a couple of PSA 9s, some PSA 10s, not a whole lot, but we are seeing Prismatic Evolutions graded hit the market quite a bit. And we'll be taking a look at a lot of modern grails that have been hitting new record prices as well, which is nothing new in this hobby lately. So stay tuned to the very end. You're really going to love today's recap. Today's auction recap sponsor is the one and only KantoShark.com, the ultimate Pokemon card marketplace. After the video, check out KantoShark.com, where they have recently listed some beautiful pieces of product. I mean, check out this array right here of beautiful vintage and modern booster boxes for sale. Not only that, but they have quite the selection of graded cards ranging from very much affordable to absolute grail status. They have super fast shipping upon checkout and payment plans available as well. A link to the Kanto Shark website will be in the description of this video. Please go check out what they have. Alright folks, here it is, the auction recap. We're going to start off with some graded cards from Prismatic Evolution, starting off with this Master Ball Reverse Holo Flareon that graded a PSA 9 and sold for $100. Here is a special illustration rare Jolteon EX that was graded a PSA 9 as well, sold for $205. Here is a PSA 9 Vaporeon EX that sold for $276. Here's a PSA 9 Espeon EX that sold for $315. Another one here sold for $326. So, a lot of PSA 9s starting off. Maybe these cards are a little bit tougher to grade than we thought they would be. Here's another PSA 9. This is a Flareon EX SIR that sold for $333. And then we have this Reverse Holo Master Ball Umbreon card that sold as a PSA 10 for $1,400 this week. And we are seeing numerous PSA 10 Umbreon EX Special Illustration Rares coming through, none that have sold thus far. Here's one currently in auction for $3,050, another one for $3,300, another one for $3,400, and here's one ending later tonight for $4,000 so far. So we will cover the results of all of these Umbreon EXs in next week's recap, so stay tuned for that. Up next is this illustration rare Groudon from Paradox Rift, selling in auction for $405 as a PSA 10. Here we have the Mew EX Special Illustration Rare, continues to be selling for phenomenal prices. This week, a PSA 10 sold for $1,150. A couple of Black Label cards came through. Here is a Black Label Gyarados VMAX from Evolving Skies that sold for $1,500. Here is a Black Label Leafeon VMAX Alt Art that sold for $3,375. Here is a Black Label Arceus V-Star from Crown Zenith, sold for $1,775, along with this Black Label 25th Anniversary Japanese Charizard that sold for $1,929. And then here, folks, is a Black Label Team Skullgrunt Pikachu card that sold for an even $8,000 this week. Up next, folks, we have this small fortune of sealed Pikachu Van Gogh promo cards, 25 cards total, that sold for $7,800. And depending on how these grade, man, this is definitely a fortune worth of card stock. Here is a raw copy of the Umbreon VMAX that sold for about $1,650. And the PSA 10s have been staying put the past 2 weeks. They were just skyrocketing, as you know, but they've been selling for around $2,800 recently. That's the price they've been staying at thus far. Not the Giratina V, though. The Giratina V from Lost Origin, I believe, hit a new record price as a PSA 10, at least in auction, selling for $1,775. Here we have a raw copy of the Latios GX Alt Art from Team Up that sold for $1,534, while the PSA 10s continue to hit record prices. Here's a PSA 10 copy that sold for $5,100. Another one here sold for $5,400. Here we have the Jesse and James Full Art Trainer from Hidden Fates. If you haven't seen my most recent video, I've been doing top 10 cards that have been like skyrocketing in value over the past couple of weeks. This one was on the most recent video. as a PSA 10 sold this week for $272. A couple of cards from the XY era. Here is a Full Art Lugia EX that sold as a PSA 10 for $700. Here is a Full Art Secret Rare Alakazam EX from Fates Collide, sold for $850. Here is a Mewtwo EX from Breakthrough that sold for $335, while the Secret Rare Mewtwo EX from Breakthrough set sold for $662. And then here, folks, I'm going to be honest with you, I am not sure what the story is with this card right here. Maybe you could fill me in, give me a little education in the comments, but this is a Professor Program Voltorb Reverse Holo card in PSA 10 that has been selling for some very expensive prices these past couple of weeks, most recently selling for $5,350. And this is a pretty low pop card. I think there's like 30 PSA 10 copies so far, but yeah, if you could let me know what the deal is with this card, I'm not quite sure. I would appreciate it. Into the vintage portion of the video, we saw just two Topps Chrome Series cards of Pikachu. Here was a Pikachu Sparkle card in PSA 10, sold for $6,099, while the Techno version of this card, which is usually more expensive, but sold for a little bit less than the Sparkle Pikachu, this Techno card sold for $5,488, also as a PSA 10. Here we have a lot of 87 different cards from first edition base, all in PSA 9. Looks to be all of the, or at least most of the non-holo cards from this set, sold for a grand total of $6,100. So that was pretty interesting. Here we have a CGC 10 Pristine Dark Blastoise from Legendary Collection. Assuming it's authentic, it's sold for $2,809. And I keyed with the CGC collectors. You know, there's a CGC grading controversy the past week, so just a little bit of playful humor there for you. Here is a raw copy of the Reverse Holo Charizard from Legendary Collection that sold for $1,309. Here we have a PSA 9 Crystal Charizard from Skyridge, sold for an even $8,000 this week, along with this Gold Star Pikachu that sold as a PSA 10 for $9,701. Here we have a PGC 10 Charizard Gold Star from Dragon Frontiers that sold for $6,669. And I'm not sure who would grade a card like this with a company like this, because the PSA 10s of this card are like definitely over $20,000, so I don't know. Here we have the bottom half of the Lugia Legend card from Heart Gold Soul Silver, sold as a PSA 10 for $8,227. Now, as you know, I'm not a big fan of cards that you gotta piece together, but if you're gonna have a half of a card like this, the bottom half of this Lugia Legend card is the piece to have. And boy, that's quite a price tag on that puppy. Here we have a case of Evolving Skies booster boxes, sold for $7,800. So what is that, like close to $1,400 per booster box now? Absolutely insane. Up next, we have the Fanatics Collect weekly auction block. We saw several of the holo cards from the E-Series. Here is a holo Vaporeon from Skyridge that sold for $1,500. Here is an Expedition Tyranitar holo that sold for $2,340. Here is an Expedition Pichu that sold for $2,880. And then we saw the CGC 10 Pristine Houndoom from Skyridge that sold for $1,560. And then a PSA 10 copy was double that price, selling for an even $3,000 this week. Here is a Black Label Charizard V Champions Path Elite Trainer Box promo that sold for $900. Then here is a Black Label Charizard V Secret Rare card from Champions Path itself that sold for $2,640. From EX Delta Species, we saw this Umbreon holo sell as a PSA 10 for $1,110, along with this Rayquaza EX Black Star promo that sold for $4,800. Here we have a PSA 10 First Edition Blaine's Charizard from Gym Challenge, sold for $4,200 this week. And then here is a 2011 Black and White promo Battle Carnival Third Place Victory Cup card in PSA 10 that sold for $9,600. Then here we had a Heart Gold Soul Silver Undaunted Umbreon holo that sold as a PSA 10 for an even $6,000. Along with this Umbreon Cracked Ice Hollow from Heart Gold Soul Silver Undaunted that sold for $9,900. Let's finish off this auction recap with some auctions from Alt. I had a bunch of those Alpha Beta playtest cards lined up for you. I don't know where they went. However, here is a CGC Pristine Reverse Hollow Ivysaur from Legendary Collection, sold for $773. Here's a Reverse Hollow Bulbasaur that sold for $2,645. And here's a Reverse Hollow Eevee that sold for $4,561. Here we have a BGS 9.5 First Edition Glurak, otherwise known as the German base set Charizard, sold for $4,177. Here we have a CGC 10 Pristine Hollow Gengar from Skyridge that sold for $9,905. And the final auction in this week's recap is this PSA 10 2015 Japanese promo Battle Festa Pikachu card that sold for $13,100. That's it for the auction recap, folks. Thank you so much for watching. Let me know what you thought in the comments below. I always look forward to hearing from you. And that's all I got today. I'll catch you in my next one.